participants a year. So you can begin to see that what's being offered here is the opportunity for young people to find out about themselves, to learn skills, to learn about their communities, and become more rounded individuals. This holistic education concept that I was talking about earlier. And if we have a look at the next slide, we can begin to see what the outcomes of that are. And they are the words that I've used before. And the top 5 are perhaps will not be unsurprising to you. We know from our research that young people's self-motivation increases, their ability to work in teams, their social skills develop, that their ability to understand and be part of social cohesion improves, and of course their health and fitness improves. Because we know that once introduced to a lot of things outside perhaps their normal day-to-day life, many young people carry on these good habits or these skills that they've learned and continue to do. The final 3, though, is the bit that I really want to focus on. And there is a lot of talk today about young people's fragile mental health. And I think those of us that work with young people will know that's absolutely true. But giving young people the resilience, the self-motivation, the confidence does improve their mental health. We know that through our research. It also increases their employability. Employers want young people to have more than academic skills or academic knowledge that's just tested. They want the ability for them to be creative, to work with others, to be teamwork, to have those social skills that we were talking about. Finally, their entrepreneurship skills improve. And that's, again, been proven. And in today's world, particularly in less developed economies, entrepreneurship is the thing that young people really need. We know from our research that's validated by PwC that undertaking the award brings in £509 million per year social value to a society. And the future value of that work is £1.5 billion worth of social value. I would contend to you, and I'll leave you with one thought, that young people today need this holistic education. They need more than the formal learning that they get in traditional settings, but they need this non-formal education and learning. Thank you for listening.
Thank you to you, Stephen. And next, we will listen to Kevin Mills, the Global Head of...
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's a tremendous honor to be alongside these distinguished panelists for this forum. My name is Kevin Mills, and I lead our teams at Coursera that work with government agencies or higher education institutions around the world. Coursera is now one of the world's largest online learning platforms, serving over 130 million learners around the world. And I joined in the early days, about 9 years ago, because I was inspired by our founder's mission and vision to democratize access to the world's best education. I think there's perhaps no more important time for this mission as today, with the rise of generative AI and the impacts on the labor market it's bringing. As you see on this slide, typically when new technology has been introduced into our society, it's been those lowest skilled, lowest wage jobs that are at highest risk of being automated. And so a lot of policymakers are focused on helping those learners specifically move to higher wage, safer jobs. With the rise of generative AI, now all jobs are really at significant risk of generative AI. And even those at the highest skill level and highest wage are at risk of being at least significantly impacted by generative AI. If we go to the next slide, what does this mean for us as a human society? Well, one thing I know it means is that there will be a need for upskilling and reskilling at a pace and at a scale that we've never encountered before as a civilization. As a working professional myself, as a father to 2 young kids, this is pretty overwhelming and perhaps a scary thought. As an educator here at Coursera, I'm actually quite optimistic and excited that we will be up for this challenge as a society, mainly because AI is not only a disruptor, bringing about a lot of change to the labor market, It's also an incredible enabler, bringing about a lot of positive advancements about how we can educate our society and our learners. And I want to share with you a little bit about what we're doing here at Coursera with this technology. If you'll go, I think, click. So one thing we're doing is we're really focused on helping give the skills on generative AI to employees and employers around the world, teaching them these tools that are quickly evolving, but that they can stay ahead of these tools and use them to make themselves more productive rather than risk being displaced altogether. If you move to the next, we're also working with workforce agencies and universities around the world using our Career Academy to actually help prepare students and displaced workers for high demand, new high paying jobs. Furthermore, we're actually integrating AI into the learning experience ourselves. So we've actually launched Coach to about half of our learners right now in beta. Coursera Coach is our term for basically an AI-powered personal tutor that's available to you 24/7, actually helping you complete your Coursera programs. This, I think, is one of the most exciting advances in AI to make it more personalized and interactive. And I think you'll see a lot of advancement on that in the coming months and years. The next thing we've done is we've launched what we call Course Builder. This is a tool, again, powered by AI that allows teachers and professors to make entirely new courses tailored to the needs of their classroom or their students in a matter of minutes rather than days or many hours as it used to take. The next thing that we've done is harness the power of AI. If you go to the next build there, to actually translate our entire catalog of nearly 5,000 courses into the world's most widely spoken languages. And we're rapidly adding new languages. This is all thanks to the power of AI, which has dramatically brought down the cost of translating high quality course content. If we move to the next slide. Now, Coursera does this not by ourselves, but in close collaboration with many of the world's most trusted institutions. Namely, we partner with about 300 top universities from many countries around the world and leading industry partners, those leading companies that are at the forefront of these technologies. We partner with these companies because we believe that they are best positioned to teach very high quality content and be respected and trusted as a source of truth, which will be all the more important in this age of AI, where learning content will become so much more ubiquitous. Furthermore, we ask these companies to actually stand behind the content that they're publishing on the Coursera platform by putting their brand and their reputation on the credential itself. As I mentioned, Coursera offers over 4,000 credential programs authored by these top trusted institutions. These on the slide are some of our most popular. All of these are what we call professional certificates. They were all designed with one goal in mind: prepare someone who has no experience in a field, perhaps no college degree, be taught entirely online, and prepare them for a high demand, high wage job. This has been a game changer in the higher education space and the workforce development space. And Coursera is actively working with governments and regulatory bodies across the world to help integrate this more closely into the existing education and workforce development infrastructure. We're working to get these certificates recommended for college credit by institutions like the American Council of Education in the United States or ECTS in Europe. Furthermore, and if you'll go to the next slide, we're actively establishing public-private partnerships with governments and higher education institutions around the world to actually embed these programs into existing degree programs. For instance, with the Ministry of Education in the Republic of Kazakhstan, they've actually embedded Coursera into all of their public higher education institutions. Now, when someone graduates from a Kazakh university, they graduate not only with a high quality degree, but they are also graduating with an industry recognized credential and the skills associated with that to help prepare them for a high demand job. This is just one of many hundreds of examples I could share. And with that, I'll conclude my opening remarks with a window of what Coursera is doing to really harness the power of AI to help prepare our world for the coming changes to the labor market brought along by generative AI. Thank you again for having me. I'm very honored to be part of this discussion. Thank you.
Lastly, we have
Hey, sorry, I couldn't quite hear you there, Eliana, but I assume I'm on. Nice to see everyone today. My name's Gavin. I'm the CEO of Digify Africa. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about a product we built called the DigiBot, which delivers self-paced learning at scale via WhatsApp. But a little bit of background about us first before we go to the next slide and tell you what the DigiBot is about. We're a non-profit company that has been working on the African continent for the last 12 years, trying to help post-school youth aged 18 to 35 try and build careers and livelihoods with digital skills. And so we've delivered programs all over the African continent, from basic digital literacy programs to get the foundational skills, all the way up to entry to employment programs that have produced thousands of jobs for our learners. But about 4 or 5 years ago, we were looking at how we could deliver more of our training online to African youth. And we came up against some very difficult problems, mainly around access. And we know that our typical learner does not have access to a PC, does not have access to broadband internet, and may not really have access to much data, even if they do have a cell phone. We've been using WhatsApp as a learning support tool for our other programs. We decided to try and build a way of delivering course content via WhatsApp. If you can go to the next slide. So what we've developed is something called the DigiBot. It allows you to build and deliver courses entirely within the WhatsApp environment. So it is a WhatsApp chatbot, but it's more than that. It's actually a really engaging educational experience using text and voice notes and images and lots of custom features we have built to try and make it very engaging. So quizzes, leaderboards, progress trackers, and essentially it's become a learning management system that operates within WhatsApp. So it's super affordable. It costs very little for the user to data-wise. You don't need to download any app. You don't need to even go to the internet. So it's maximum accessibility, and then the learning itself is broken down into very small bite-sized chunks. So it's micro-learning, it's easy for the user to go through the learning at their own pace, at their own time, on the bus, on the taxi, as they're going, but also it's got a powerful analytics layer underneath, so we can get really great dashboard information on learner behavior and progress. Plus, we've integrated generative AI into it. So it's not just a structured bot. It also allows for the asking of open questions into the learning experience. If you can go to the next slide. In about 18 months since we have launched with 4 bots that we've built, one around digital literacy, one around internet safety. In particular, we've had almost 700,000 young people sign up to use the chatbots, and of those, 62% have completed all the content on the chatbots. So we've had really great traction, partly because of a partnership with the South African Basic Education Department here in South Africa, and support from partners including Meta and MasterCard and the Dell Foundation. But I think the real important stat here is that completion rate. We're talking about a fairly short content experience, but nevertheless, the fact that 62% of people who joined the chatbots have finished everything means that we're now looking at how we can take these learning pathways much deeper. If you can go to the next slide. But as a nonprofit, of course, it's about how do you make this sustainable? So for us, we've actually now launched a for-profit company out of the nonprofit to drive the chatbot product. And that is going to be operating on a business-to-business revenue model basis, because we don't want our users, obviously, to pay for this content. We want it to be free for them. So that's where we've worked with the likes of Meta and the MasterCard Foundation to support the growth of the bots. But we're also bringing in paid corporate clients now to sponsor different content, including financial literacy, onto the chatbots. So to make this thing sustainable, we plan to bring in multiple partners to sponsor different types of content to allow us to expand on these content threads we've got and to build a sustainable and profitable business. And the next stage for us, as well as maintaining the scale and pushing towards 1 million learners by the end of next year, is to see how we can build pathways from this basic learning experience to the creation of livelihoods, which is what our company is all about. Thanks very much.
Can be exploited.
I do believe we're having some audio issues, and so I'm going to quickly jump in with some questions in the meanwhile. We do have some questions. Thank you so much to our panelists for their incredible insights on their innovative ways of reaching the non-formal education systems and thinking outside of the box, really. We do have some questions, exciting questions coming in from the chat. So a question that just came in is, what is incentivizing young people in the short term to stick to informal learning courses? If any panelist would like to take that. Stephen, go for it.
I think it's. I think we have to acknowledge. Firstly, it's really tough. I think attention spans. We say in a rather patronising way that young people's attention spans have decreased, but actually everybody's attention spans have decreased. So it is difficult, and I think we have to acknowledge that. I think the thing that keeps them going is not just the interaction with the technology, but with people. And I think having a mentor, having a colleague, having a partner, having a friend who motivates you and supports you through an educational process, regardless of what it is probably the thing that keeps you going more than just your self-motivation. Learning anything can be a lonely job, as we know. And I think having someone else there to encourage you is really, really important. That would just be my contribution on it.
Excellent. No, very well noted, Stephen, that it does take learning takes the entire community and as well as sort of participants, fellow learners on the platforms who are engaging to sort of echo each other's learning journeys and build on each other's learning journeys, and that's what sort of emulating that classroom experience. Gavin, you had some thoughts on that.
I just wanted to add that I think in our case, obviously, there's a clear pathway towards an ultimate goal, which is paid work and a livelihood or some kind of growing your business. And as long as those pathways are, available and they're clear and they're tangible, they're not, just pie in the sky. And for young people, I think in our community, the fact that they can see, going back to the point about community, they can see others like them have been down that pathway and gained jobs, and there's thousands of peer mentors and you know, role models for them to aim at. So I think that is the primary driver.
Excellent. No, absolutely agreed on that, and a very, very interesting point on that. We do have another question from the chat that has come in, asking, are there any opportunities for non-formal education initiatives who can collaborate with formal education systems to create a comprehensive and inclusive skilling ecosystem, you know, which is flexible and adapts to the changing labor market demands?
Yeah, I mean, and there are lots of examples of that. Certainly in my experience, we're currently working with the MasterCard Foundation in a number of universities in Africa, particularly in Benin and Kenya, where they recognise that actually the balance, this holistic approach to education is really important. And I'm not here to say that you know, non-formal education is the answer to everything. Of course it's not. Young people need to learn skills, they need to learn the facts and the underpinning knowledge that makes for a good academic qualification. However, I would contend and do contend that actually they need more than that. So there's also lots of schools in our experience. A lot of the people who run our program are schools, and they do that alongside their formal education programs because they recognise this difference. And it's been used in a similar fashion by organisations like the International Baccalaureate, for instance, who balance both formal and non-formal education and sort of social skills and personal development alongside that formal education. So yeah, there are lots of opportunities for collaboration, and lots of governments are beginning to recognise it, not just in the what we would call the developed world, perhaps, but particularly in, and I come back to the African example, but also in Asia, where lots of young people, lots of governments fund young people's contribution or engagement in non-formal education programs as part of their education system. So, you know, where we don't, perhaps in the more developed world, we're kind of behind the curve, I think, really.
No, that's, sorry, Kevin, please come in.
Oh, I would echo and plus one to everything Stephen said. Clearly, the combination of some of the technology tools and non-formal education within some of the formal education and some of that human infrastructure is kind of the best approach to these skilling opportunities for youth. And then tying to the last question, that's also kind of the best system to help prepare these learners for tangible employment outcomes too, that kind of formal system with some of the tools and informal system that helps with that motivation factor. So yeah, I think very much agree with my fellow panelists.
Absolutely. So both a supplementary but as well as complementary approach to both systems is what I'm hearing from the panelists. And, you know, that's an excellent way forward, even for tech, even for sort of the innovation that's going on within both the formal and informal education systems. And so excellent point. One final question from the audience that has come in is, how do you successfully reach young people who are not captive audiences or are not part of formal institutions? And what is a good mobilization strategy to do so? Gavin.
Well, I mean, that's exactly why we started using WhatsApp in the first place, because it's very difficult, you know, and there are a lot of young people who are not connected to, well, are not geographically connected in the first place, so they can't reach the institutions, and are not digitally connected or minimally connected. So I think this is our attempt to kind of solve that question by making it the easiest kind of lowest bar to entry and using a low-tech solution. And I think that doesn't mean low-tech is the answer, but it's one way to solve the basic question of access and to get those young people into the system in the first place.
Excellent. Well, I think we're at the top of the hour. Thank you so much, Stephen, Kevin, and Gavin, for joining us for this truly enriching session and for your rich discussion. Thank you so much to our moderator, Eliana, for her time. And we do apologize for a bit of the tech issues that we've had, but we'll see you for the next session of the day. And we're now signing off. Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.